Hello and welcome to my second vlog. This vlog is all about editing, the purpose, the techniques and the history of it, because it's all actually more interesting than you think it is. Editing is taking the clips you need and manipulating them or rearranging them to create a more eye-pleasing watch for the audience. This will also hook the audience through the screen and give them a emotional and physiological response. Editing shapes the flow of the story and makes the video come to life. Without it, the video would lose its value and interest, and it just wouldn't be very fun for the audience to watch because it probably wouldn't make much sense. But also, if you edit wrong, then it also won't make any sense. So you've got to be careful and use the techniques that are right for your video. In 1872, photographer Edward Muybridge took a series of photographs to prove to his friends that horses took all feet off the ground while galloping. He then realised that this could sort of create a motion picture, so he later created a thing called a zoopraxiscope, which is a circular thing that you slot the film into and then it spins really quick and it creates the illusion of a motion picture. In 1890, Thomas Edison and William Dixon made the first camera to make motion pictures, which is called the kinetograph. This worked by moving light over film, however it was a one-person contraption, and as you can see it's quite big and you have to look for it through little goggles. In 1902, artists like George Méliès realised you didn't have to have a film play in the exact order and way it was recorded, as this was what was done for many years. He basically created editing. Editing was initially done by physically cutting apart the film and then splicing it together with another part. However, this was very tedious as you had to be very exact and sometimes even had to use a microscope. So it wasn't done very often, but it was still done and it was still created at this time period. In 1924, Iwan Sarouvia created the Mavolia, which allowed editors to view the film or editing it, aka the first machine for motion picture editing. The first videotape recorder is released in 1956 called the Ampex. This allowed television to be recorded and edited using magnetic tape. However, the machine itself costed a lot of money and was huge, as you can see, so not many people had one. Timecode, which is a very important thing in editing at this point in time, was created in 1961, which means you can edit more precisely. So when I go to edit this video a bit later, I could go to the 24th frame and edit from that point on. The CMX 600 was introduced in 1971 as the first non-linear computerized editor for offline editing. This requires a disk drive the size of a washing machine. They're still very big, but it's not as big as the Ampex, so there was progress. In 1984, the Edit Droid was created by Lucasfilms, who are the people that made Star Wars, if you didn't know that, which is a computer workstation that uses multiple analog laser discs to enable random access editing. Editing software created by EMC and Avid was introduced in 1988 to 91, ushering in the era of professional digital editing suites such as Adobe Premiere, which is what I use to edit these videos. In the 2000s, multi-core CPUs granted ordinary computers the resources to edit digital video at higher resolutions. 2015 brought digital dominance. Everything became digital. Cameras, film distribution, projection, editing software, literally everything. In editing, there are many different techniques such as a standard cut, which is connecting the last frame of one cut to the first frame of the next. There's jump cuts, which is cutting forward in time, often in the same clip. Montage uses short clips and quick cuts to signify the passage of time. L-cut, which is audio from clip A continuing over clip B. Or a J-cut, which is audio from clip B comes in whilst we're seeing clip A. Cutting in on action, which is showing the action in the clip, perhaps from a different angle or a close-up. A very important subject within editing techniques is Budovkin. He was a Russian filmmaker, director, actor and writer from the 20th century, and he once said, "The foundation of film art is editing." He believed there was more to editing than just structural editing, which is just progressing the story, and that it was more about directing the emotions of your audience. He created the 5 principles of editing that are used to this day in every single film you will watch. The first one is contrast, which is taking 2 different things, putting them next to each other and highlighting the differences. A good example of this is the baptism scene from The Godfather, as while he's renouncing the devil, he has hitmen killing people around town, which is pretty much the biggest contrast you can have. Then there is parallelism, which is taking 2 different things, putting them together to show the similarities. A good example of this is Indiana Jones, when the treasure hunter puts the hat on young Indy, then it cuts to him years later as he looks pretty much the same, except he's a lot older and he's still wearing the same hat. The third one is symbolism, which is very similar to parallelism but is more symbolic, hence the name. This is taking 2 unrelated shots and putting them side by side. An example of this is in Interstellar, Romilly tells Cooper that he is scared to die, which is followed by an image of them flying past Saturn, which looks huge compared to them. So not only does this make the audience scared, it creates sympathy from the audience for the cast members. Then there's simultaneity, which is 2 scenes happening at the same time. You cut back and forth between each one. The most famous example of this is Silence of the Lambs. While the SWAT team is preparing to close in on Buffalo Bill's house, it cuts back and forth to the SWAT team and Bill, and creates a lot of suspense because you think that they're about to catch him, but in the end it turns out he's not there and that they're wrong place. The last one is leitmotif, which is traditionally used in music but can also be used in editing as well. This is a repetition of theme. The biggest example of this is in Jaws. Every time you see a person swimming, you know exactly what's going to happen. The shark is going to come up and eat that person. That happens so many times in Jaws films, so you just kind of get used to it. It's important to know these because it really helps you elevate the story and create more clever ways to relate ideas, emotions, and transfer your audience from place to place. In today's day and age, most people will use editing software such as Adobe Premiere or Final Cut Pro or iMovie. For example, when I will sit down and edit this video in a little bit, I will use Premiere Pro and I'll take this MOV file. MOV is video file, whereas MP3 will be audio file. This MOV file, I will import it onto Premiere Pro, and then I will drag it from the import bin to the timeline, and then from then I will start editing it bit by bit and cutting in videos and pictures as you have seen, to make it more interesting and show the history in a better way than I could explain. So I better start doing that so that you can actually watch this video, because otherwise I'm just gonna make it for no reason. So yeah, hope you enjoyed. I very